Hi, I'm Greg Bennick, and I'd like to show you a picture of my band, actually. My band playing live in Chicago about 3 months ago. As you can see, we're a folk band. One of the reasons I like this picture so much is because this picture, for me, is a culmination of a number of artists of the human spirit who have come together to share of their vulnerability, their passion, their anxiety, their fear, and their hope. One of the lyrics that inspired this moment, a lyric from the band, is, "We are the tortured and insane, disillusioned and mundane, unknown and unnamed, desperate and enslaved, and we want something more." So the title of my talk is, "And We Want Something More: Passion, Creativity, and the Human Condition." My thought is, if we're looking for clues on how to best live our lives, that we can turn to the process followed by artists as they transform nothingness into art for clues on how better to live. So, passion, creativity, and the human condition. Passion is the sense that we want to engage fully and embrace the abundance that life has to offer. Creativity is the process through which we take elements of the world around us and transform them into something new that reflect what we want, what we need, what we can imagine. The human condition is that we have limited time. And in the midst of that limited time, we're going to encounter adversity. But we have a way out. We can reason and we can create. We can transform the world around us into something new. Each one of us has a limited number of seconds to live. The heart beating in each of our chests is like a clock, ticking seconds down, slowly to zero. Given that limited number of seconds, a number unique to each person here tonight, the question becomes, what are we going to do with our time? What are we going to do with that extremely valuable time? After all, a number of those seconds are already accounted for. We need seconds for sleeping. We need seconds for eating. We need precious seconds for emailing, for twittering, for texting, for Facebooking. Greg Bennick is on stage at TEDx, updating everyone about how he's on stage, talking about being on stage at TEDx. Update. The question becomes, with the seconds left, what are we going to do with the time we have left? What does it mean to want something more? How do we solve the problem of the human condition? My suggestion is that we use our creativity. Human beings are the only creatures on the planet who can be creative. Otto Rank said, "Humans have the unique capacity to make the unreal real." Other creatures might create, but they're not being creative. Because one of the hallmarks of creativity is that the creative process and the result of that creative process can change quickly. And that's not true in the animal world. The beaver builds a dam. We're not going to come back the next week and have that dam go from being horizontal to suddenly the beavers have built it vertically, with a beaver living on every floor and a doorman at the bottom waiting to ask us in. We can invent what we want in our lives, be that a conference, a speech, a wristwatch. We can start from nothing, from being emotionally void, and we can end up entirely full. As an artist, my job is to transform the elements of my life into something new. This is transformation. This is process. We can take the ways we've been hurt. We can take our experiences, and from them we can create something new. The problem is that oftentimes we don't see ourselves as artists. Artists are other people. The dancer is an artist. The singer is an artist. The painter is an artist. My suggestion is that the most creative person that we encounter all month might be the person that sweeps up after we leave here tonight, or who emptied the waste paper basket in your office this morning. The most creative person we encounter all month might be sitting next to us. They might be sitting in our chair. Artists are all around us if we're willing to look for them, if we're willing to listen to them, if we're willing to be them. When TEDx asked for my bio to come here tonight, I said, Greg Bennick is a producer of films about wisdom and the human condition. He sings in 2 different bands that explore human consciousness. He's put out 5 records. He's traveled the world. He meets with world leaders to discuss issues of aggression and violence. He lives in Seattle. He likes Thai food. He writes his own bios. But these are irrelevancies. These are irrelevancies. Because the names of the things that I do are nowhere near as significant as the fact that I'm engaging in process and willing for the world to offer of myself. By a show of hands, how many people here have ever been in love? There we go. Quite a few. That's a good thing. That's great. I mean, actually, in love with somebody, not in love at somebody. That's called obsession. Anyway. The reason I bring it up is because falling in love is the creative process personified. It's the artist process. You start from a position of having nothing. Maybe you're terrified, maybe you're concerned, maybe you're unsure. But then giving of yourself, you enter into the unknown. And in entering into the unknown, hopefully you transform the unknown into something beautiful that is known. A few months ago, I was at White Cliff Park in Vancouver, BC. And if any of you have been to White Cliff Park, you know that as you walk down to the water, there's a path of boulders leading out into the water 400 feet that you can walk on and make your way out to an island that you can then climb over. And I climbed over the island and I sat with my laptop and I did some work for a couple hours until the sun went down. Well, after the sun went down, or started to go down, I walked back over the island. I got back down to the water line, and as I stood there on the shoreline, I looked out and I was shocked because the tide had come in. And where there was a pathway of boulders 400 feet long before, now there was only icy, rushing water. First thought, I'm doomed. Second thought, I'm going to have to stay on this island overnight. Third thought, a reaction. Lift the laptop over the head, deep breath, step into the water. Thankfully for me, my foot hit a rock. That's a good thing. As I kept walking, that wasn't always true. Sometimes I'd sink in up to my chest in icy water. Well, as I walked along, I realized that I was laughing. And as I got back to the shore and looked back at what I'd done, I was hysterical laughing, as were all the people who had been watching this from the shoreline. But the point is that I had transformed a place where I was terrified into a place where I had really accomplished and transformed that terror into something new. Falling in love is the same experience, and that's why I would hope that any person who had their hand in the air would consider themselves an artist. We solve the problem of the human condition by taking our passion and our creativity and exploring them as we work to create something new. We use our courage to work to create something new. If we're an artist, what we fashion is an object. If we're an artist of the human condition, what we fashion is ourselves, and that is something more. But we want something more, something within each of us that we can give. Not something that we can get, something that we can have, something that we can take, something that we can steal, something that we can own. So what blocks us along the way? I used to believe that my self-doubt, my insecurity, and my fear destroyed my potential to be alive. My self-doubt, my insecurity, and my fear are my potential to be alive. We are social creatures. We are desperate for connection, and as a result, we will feel insecure and unsure at times. Loneliness is us, desperate for validation. But the artist doesn't get destroyed by loneliness. The artist plays with loneliness. The artist breathes it in and feels it. When I'm lonely, I feel vulnerable. But vulnerability is what's left when we stop defending against life. A bunch of years ago, my band played in the Netherlands. We played a song called When There's Nothing Left to Lose. And the song is about taking our fear and our anxiety and our suffering, and just for a few moments, considering what if there weren't social conventions which made us feel less than because we are afraid or because we're insecure or unsure. And I asked the audience that night, as I ask you now, what if for 3 minutes we could do away with those social conventions and just appear before one another as we are, wounds and all? We played the song. The audience went absolutely crazy. After the show, a woman comes up to me from the back of the room, and in broken English she says to me, "I like your band. And when you played that one song, the song about suffering, I stood by myself in the back of the room and I screamed as loud as I could, and I was crying." She took a deep breath in and she said, "Thank you." We create a ripple effect of emotional courage through transformation. I feel something, I write it, I share it. She feels it, she shares it with me. I hear that, I feel it, I share it with each of you here tonight. You feel it, you share it with other people. This is a revolution of the human consciousness, and that is something more. But if we want something more, and we're willing to take our passion, our creativity, and use those to solve the human condition, along the way there are immense roadblocks that we need to face. Death is a huge one. It has a 100% mortality, fatality rate. We're not going to conquer that one. But the others, I'm insecure. I'm afraid. I'm unsure. I don't know how to do it. I can't feel. The artist continues regardless. And the only question that matters, as we're standing on the shoreline, listening to those precious seconds slip by in our hearts, is not, is the water cold? Am I going to get wet? Am I going to die? The only question that matters as those seconds slip away is how long is it going to take for us to take that first step? We take the first step. We walk through it. Even if we've been at a point where we feel total despair or concern or terror, we breathe it in. We feel what it means and what it feels like to be afraid and to be alive. And we say yes to it all. And step by step, as we go, we transform. And that is something more. Thank you.